already signed in, could you please sign in again on the chat? Right, I've got 60 participants at the moment. I've only got 24 chat messages. So if you haven't already done so, can you please sign in on the chat with your name and the team you're representing, please? Right. Dave, we're up to 7 o'clock, and I've got 94 on at the moment. I've still only got 63 messages in the chat, so if you haven't already done so, can you sign in, please, with your name and the team you're representing, and we'll use the chat as a record of who's attended. That gives a good indication of who we need to send fines to for not attending. If you have any questions, can you also put those into the chat, please? Because if everybody starts unmuting themselves and trying to talk at once, it's going to turn into carnage with this many people, and it's probably going to crash my computer again. So any questions, please? We haven't had much of anything come in advance, so presumably you've all completely read and understood all the rules, which is great. But if you do have any questions that come up, if you stick them in the chat, we will try and answer them tonight, and if we don't get to them, I'll make sure that we put out a general Q&A afterwards with anything that we've missed.
We have 7 committee members. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 committee members, so you should be able to answer all the questions if we have time.
It's more about spotting them.
Obviously.
Well, we've got 8 committee members on, we've got 96 participants, which means we're about...
Nearly there.
We're nearly there. We're about 8 short. Okay, we're up to 98. All right, you can probably crack on.
Okay, good. Thank you all for joining, and generally our captain's meetings only last for sort of 20 minutes. We just run through the rule changes. Captains collect their balls and off we go. However, this year will be a little different. So what we're going to go through is a few of the headline points from various sections of the game, and hope that you read all the rules before you start playing. So I'll start off with the match. All matches start at 1 o'clock from week 1 to week 16, and they will move to 12:30 for week 17 and 18. The tiers 6 and 7 playing time for a win-lose game is 6 hours with a 30-minute interval, so it should finish around 7:30. Tier 8 playing time is 5.5 hours with a 30-minute interval for win-lose, so that should finish around 7. So I guess for the some of the OCA teams, the time that games finish, we've been quite strict in the Chilwell League for that. So definitely in the higher divisions, you actually lose runs, or you get penalty runs given against you if you go over. Obviously, at the lower level, we don't generally have panel umpires. However, this year we might have that, so it might be enforced. So it's good to make sure that your teams are turned around quickly between overs, and you try to adhere to the time frame as best you can. For the win-lose draw games, the games are half an hour shorter, so it's 5 hours for tier 8 and 5.5 hours for tier 6 and 7, with half an hour interval for tees. When the rain rules come into play, then the end time is slightly adjusted depending on the where you are in the game when rain comes in. You will need a 30-yard circle in the win-lose games. So that's something that might be new. All rain rules and the calculator are found on the website, and they'll be under the admin tab. It's fairly clearly labelled as rain calculation. Balls. So from a tier 6 to 8, you can use either the Hampton ball or the Tiflex Buckingham branded ball. You must use the same ball, same new ball for both innings. That's important. You can't use one Hampton and one Buckingham. You will need at least one new ball as a spare, because if the ball gets lost in the first 5 overs, it's expected to have a new ball replaced. You will need a varying number of spare balls as well for the game. Generally, we would ask for 6 spare balls to be on site at various ages. So if they need to be changed, the umpires or the captains can then agree on the age of the ball. Obviously, at the start of the season, if you don't have 6 spare balls from either Hampton or Buckingham, then decent replacements can be used. But after week 3, you should have 6 new balls at the club. 6 spare balls at the club at some age or another, so you can use those. Umpires. So in tier 6, 7, and 8, if you supply a club umpire, you will get an extra point. If you supply a panel umpire, you will get a panel umpire appointed to your game. If you have a player as an umpire, players as the umpires, then you don't get that extra point. Before the game, you must provide the standing umpires of your club or a panel umpire with a match ball and a team sheet. That must indicate the underage players playing in that match. If there's no standing umpires, captains should exchange a team sheet, because it's important that you have that in place for the scorecards and the match result. For scorers, Division 6 is required to have a scorer. At the moment, only home scorers are required under the COVID rules. However, that might change during the season, and we would then look for 2 scorers for a Division 6 game. It's not excluding scorers, so if a away team scorer wants to go to and participate in that match, then they should, or they can, I should say. However, they must follow the COVID guidelines that are in place at that time. The COVID rules, we need to follow the ECB guidance. We will update captains and clubs next week if there's any change to that. And we'll keep you updated as the season goes on if there's any change. But the ECB guidance is what we should all be following. From the results perspective, the match result needs to be registered on the website by 10 p.m. on the Saturday evening after the game. Even if the game's abandoned, washed out, generally if it's washed out, you can enter it effectively at the start of when play would start at 1 o'clock. So the scorecard needs to be completed as best as possible. If there are gaps, then you need to make sure that they're in place. The scorecard needs to be completed by 5 p.m. on Tuesday after the game. This was a little bit different to previous seasons. Previous seasons, we would allow clubs to enter the scorecard up until Thursday. The reason we've changed that is because we want to publish a team of the week, and it seems a bit pointless publishing a team of the week on a Friday. So Gary wants to get that on a Tuesday evening. So we'll have an overall team of the week from the best performers over all of the tiers, and then one for Division 1 and 3, 1 to 3, Tier 4 to 5, and Tier 6 to 8. The away team captain needs to complete a ground standard report by 9 p.m. on a Thursday after the game. Obviously, you can do these all at the same time if you'd like. If you have unregistered players, you can actually register them up to the start of the match on the start of the match. If you can't get web access to do that, an email to Gary would probably be sufficient. Registrations are only allowed up to week 13, so no registrations are allowed after that. However, you can move players up your tier. So if you've only registered a player for Division 2 for your second team and you want to play him in the first team, you can move him up for the whole length of the season. So I would advise you to read all the rules and regulations if you haven't already done so. They're available for download on the website under the admin tab. Ignorance isn't a defense. If you need to print them off and keep them in your kit bag for the season, that always helps. Sometimes it takes a little while to get used to the rules as the season goes on, and not everybody knows everything. The captains are responsible for setting the tone on the pitch and how the match is played, and you should behave according to the spirit of cricket. That's my notes. Are there any questions in the chat?
Yes, there are a couple.
Great.
Right. So, do you get an extra point for a panel umpire as well as a club umpire? Yes, you do if you're not required to put in a panel umpire. So in tiers 1 to 5, tiers 1 to 3, you have to have a panel umpire. And if you don't, you lose 5 points. In tiers 5 and 6...
No, 4 and 5.
4 and 5, you have to provide a club umpire, or you will lose 5 points. But if you've provided a panel umpire, you will get one back, and that will avoid the 5-point deduction. In the tiers 6 to 8, if you provide a panel umpire and still have an umpire at your game, you will get an extra point. So even if the umpire you've supplied is to the panel, firstly you'll get one back from the panel, so you won't actually find one yourself, and you will get the extra point even though he's not doing your game. Does the scorer have to be someone not playing in the game? I think Dave was reading the wrong notes on that. The scorers are only compulsory in divisions 1 to 3. 5 and 6, you're not required to have a 4, 5, 6. You're not required to have a scorer, so there's no point deduction for it. So no, it can be someone who is playing in the game. Is there a generic team sheet to be provided to the umpires? We're hoping to get some from OCB, and Leslie might be able to update us on that. If not, no, it doesn't have to be a generic sheet. What it has to have is 11 names on it and any underage players marked with their age, so that the umpires can dictate how many overs they're allowed to bowl in a spell. Even if the player is a spinner, you still have to give us his age, so that we can monitor it. Does the 17-inch wide line have to be a different colour? I've seen other pics of grounds using blue. Can we just use white? Yes, you can.
Yeah, the clubs use blue or red or black.
Yeah,
but that's their choice.
Yeah, as long as the line is there, it doesn't matter what colour. Well, it does matter. It can't be green. Entered list of players but not split between first and second 11. Do they need altering? No. At the moment, they will have all been entered as eligible to play in all divisions. So you don't need to alter that. Next year, you might want to think about it, because if your first team are playing in tier 5 or above, you'll have to pay for them. but the ones that are 6 and below will be free of charge throughout. There's mention of the league approved DLS app, but I cannot see which app that is in the regulations. Please could you clarify which app it is. I'm going to hand that one over to Gary in a minute, but I'll just go to the bottom of the list. What are we anticipating the revised when are we anticipating the revised COVID regulations to be published? We're not going to change the rules of the league, but we're going to put a rider across the top that says the following things are amended for the duration of COVID. Now, we're leaving that until as late as possible, just in case Boris sneezes tomorrow and decides to change something. So you will have something on the website probably Monday or Tuesday of next week. It's not a huge amount. There's not a lot that you have to worry about. And mostly it's a case of suspending a rule. So, for example, the penalty runs that we talked about, if you overrun, will be suspended and will be left at the discretion of the umpires, who may choose to report you if you're very, very slow. And the management committee will take a decision as to whether any action is required. But at the moment, that document's sitting with about 4 things on it. So it won't be an arduous read, and it should be available early next week. Is there no need for the wide lines in win, lose, draw matches? Well, I suppose that depends how wide you're going to bowl, but no, you don't have to have them. Do you get the extra point even if your umpire isn't appointed a game, even if they are available? Yes. What are the rules?
He also might be your club umpire.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
He may end up
So,
doing it.
you know, if he's a panel umpire and he doesn't get a game appointed, then he could also umpire your game as a club umpire. And
the last one I've got here, what are the rulings on live video streaming during the match? Okay, this is not a Cherwell League rule. This is something you ought to be aware of. But if you are going to stream a match live, you need to be 100% sure that you have express permission from the parent or carer of any underage player or vulnerable adult. Now, saying to the captain, we're going to stream the game, is that okay, is not express permission. And if I were you, I would want it in writing. Now, if the opposition are all over 18, I think it's fine for you to check with the captain. If he says it's okay, then crack on. If there is any player on the pitch, or for that matter, watching the game, who may appear in the live video stream, you need express written permission to stream the game or video the game. And that applies not just to live streaming, but to filming. So if you've got a player, I had a situation like this last year, you've got a player who's about to make his first 100, someone gets his phone out and starts recording it, and there are 4 16-year-olds on the pitch, you have made yourself vulnerable. So be warned.
On the Cherwell website, under safeguarding, there's the play cricket information on what you can and can't do, what you should put in place. You must have signs around the ground to warn your visitors that they might be filmed as they're walking around. You also need to make sure the umpires are aware, and you know, anyone visiting your ground must know that they're likely to be filmed. So there's lots of forms available to fill in, risk assessments and everything. So just check the website.
Yeah, I would stress here though that that is not Cherwell League ruling. That is a general safeguarding ruling, and so it applies Sunday cricket, any kind of cricket. There probably wouldn't be a sanction from us because it's not in our remit, but you could find yourself in a conversation with the welfare officer from the county that the team you're playing against, or that the young player comes from.
Dave Pryor, you got a question?
I just want to chirp in a point there, Ian. I think this ruling is all based on a private facility. If you're playing in a public park, I think it gets a bit more confused.
Possibly, but as a club, our advice is follow the ECB guidance. Is there any point deduction if there is no umpire? Well, you don't get the bonus point. That's the only deduction. That applies in tiers 6 to 8. It's a different rule in 1 to 5. How do you submit your club umpire to get the extra point. I'm going to go back to Gary on that again, but I think
on the result form, and just to clarify, the home team always puts result in: win, lose, draw, forfeit, rained off, or anything else. It's the home team's responsibility. On the result form that you submit, that's been modified to have check boxes for home umpire present, away umpire present. Now, obviously, if you're the away team, you've brought an umpire, and the home team doesn't check it, then query that with me, and we'll adjust that once we know that there was an umpire present. But it should go in as part of the result calculation that you'll be putting in on Saturday evening. And I'll talk a bit more about those in a moment as well.
Gary, do you just want to talk about the DLS app?
Yeah, if you go to the page on the website where all the rules are, there are DLS app instructions under the Tier 6 and 7 and Tier 8 playing rules, and that explains which app it is, and it's got screenshots of how you use it and a worked example. So that's all on the website, and it tells you which one it is. It's a free download. It won't give you exactly the same calculation as the app that the teams in the higher tiers use on their laptops, but that doesn't matter because it will give you a consistent score both for your match and for the relevant tier or division. So it is slightly different because they're all, depending on how new they are, they have more data added into them, which changes the calculation a little bit. But yes, there's all the details on the website for that one.
I've got a couple more come in. Section 6.8 of the general rules mentions paying umpires £30 from each club. I thought lower divisions do not have to appoint a club panel, but it is recommended. Do away clubs then do not have non-playing umpires have to pay? If an umpire is present, now in tier 6 to 8, it's not £30, it's £15 from each team. Sorry, £15 from the away team. Am I right, Nelson?
Well, be careful. If it's a panel umpire, standing on his own, it's £30 from each team.
Yeah.
If it's a club umpire, then we expect a £15 contribution from the team that does not supply the umpire.
Right. Okay. When one panel umpire is appointed, how do you know if they are representing the home or away team? Well,
I can answer that, Ian.
I'll give you that. Yeah.
Where, if you look at the fixture, you have Team A versus Team B, umpire 1, umpire 2. If I've put it in umpire 1, he's representing the home team. If I put it in umpire 2, he's representing the away team.
And you should, as a team, know whether you've supplied an umpire and expecting one as well. I mean,
yeah.
I hope you knew that. So if you have arranged for somebody to be your club umpire and they turn up, then you'd expect the other person to be from the other team.
Last one on there at the moment, have you got a list of all panel umpires and club umpires? We do have a list of all panel umpires, but we don't have a list of all club umpires. We're in the process of potentially compiling one if they want to be on it. But your club umpire can be someone who might only do one game in the season, as long as he's got a basic qualification. Anything you want to add to that, Nelson?
Well, the only thing is you can yourselves, via your club login to the website, register a club umpire.
Okay.
And in that way, if you do that, I can see their names, and if you want me to, I can actually put them against the game, so it's clear to everybody who's doing it. You don't have to do that, but you can.
Yeah, the bare minimum requirement will simply be to check the box on the scorecard, and if that says umpires present, both teams, then everybody gets a point. And if it's a club umpire supplied by both teams, we would expect you to make your own financial arrangements with them, which in many cases may be that you don't pay them because they don't want paying, or depends whether they gave the captain at LBW or not. Cracky, piling in. The fixtures on the website don't indicate whether a single umpire is umpire 1 or 2.
Yeah, it doesn't say that.
No, I was looking at that, and obviously, given that Neil's done such a good job in putting them in the right place, I will amend that so they do.
Yeah,
They
you
did last year.
changed the layout, haven't you, Gary?
I have, yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Before it would be obvious because there were 2 columns. It's not a table now, but I can do something. That's not going to be a problem.
I have put them in the correct column.
And then, in which case, in the next couple of days, they will appear in the right home. Umpire 1 or umpire 2.
Are you verifying that club umpires brought to games have a qualification? Is this a requirement? At this stage, no, because you will not necessarily be required to give any advance notice that they're there. Moving forward, that's something we'll be looking at. Which scoring apps can be used? I think TCS is the app, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, you can use anything you like to score. If you want to load it to the website, you need to use Total Cricket Scorer, which is free to download. The teams in tiers 1 to 5 have all been given league laptops with it loaded on, but you are welcome to use it by downloading TCS from their website, and then you need to use the league database, which is available on the scorers page to download on the website. And each week, a new player file is added for any new registrations. So you need to update your player file, and that there, simple operations, there are some instructions on that same web page. If you do that, then you can just you export the XML file from the TCS at the end of the match, and all you need to upload to complete your duties for results and scorecards is that file. That file will calculate the result, and it will populate the scorecard. But you do need to use the league database. If you don't, then it obviously can't find the match you've scored and you're trying to load, because they need to obviously match up.
Okay.
But however, one exception to that is if the game was decided by DLS, you need to enter the result manually, and then you can use the export file to load the scorecard. And that's because DLS can't calculate, TCS can't calculate our Duckworth-Lewis results. There's no way of finding that out. So if it's a DLS result, you need to put the results in manually, but the scorecard can still be loaded after that through that same file. And it won't load if you get the teams the wrong way around. So if you're the home team or if you're the away team and you put your name in first, so the match is A versus B, not B versus A, it won't load. And if you have the wrong date, it won't load, obviously, because you play each other twice, or in most cases, and obviously the wrong database won't load it. And often people get ahead of themselves and set the game up in TCS the day before, and that will therefore default the match date to the day before. So you need to correct that, or again, it won't load. If you do have problems, then you can email me, and I'll probably need a copy of your match XML file to deal with, but we can have a look at any problems if you get them early on. But the most frequent issue we get is people not updating their players, so you end up with a team that pulls half a dozen unknowns. And while I'm talking about those, if you do a scorecard manually, each team has got a Mr. Not Known and a Mr. Not Present. So use those boxes. If you really don't know the name, then use the Not Known field. And if a team plays with 9 or 10 men, then have the last 2 as not present. When you record the result, if you need the team to have been all out for you to win, so if they batted second, then record it as 10 wickets, and the not presents can be marked as absent out in order to make the scorecard balance. We'll chase not known players weekly so that we do get all the names. And so far, every year we've had every scorecard with all valid names in, typically by the end of the week, but certainly within a week or 2. So if you don't know somebody, put it in as not known, and we will find out from the opposition. And Dave mentioned this earlier, that normally happens when the game's rained off after about 5 overs. Everybody goes home, and you've only got 2 names for batsmen because you haven't lost any wickets for the batsmen, and you've got 2 names for bowlers because only 2 people bowled, and everyone's gone home. So that's where the team sheet is really important. We get all those names, and it's actually doubly important at the moment because it's potentially a track and trace option as well. So we do need to know who's paid.
Okay. Sorry for a repeated question, but can we please clarify how much money should be paid to an umpire and under what circumstances? Okay, so if a panel umpire turns up, i.e. someone you don't know, someone you didn't bring, and you have supplied an umpire to the panel, then he requires £45. That is the panel umpire's fee. If he is the only umpire there on the day, i.e. the opposition didn't have an umpire, didn't supply one to the panel, don't have a club umpire, then you split the cost and it's £30 each. So you get £60 because he stands at both ends. If you turn up with a club umpire and the opposition have a club umpire, that is for each of you to decide how you recompense your umpires. If, however, you turn up without an umpire and the opposition do have a club umpire, you need to make a £15 contribution to that club umpire. Hopefully that is clear. The way we've written this, I do realise it can be a little confusing, but if you read it through carefully, it does make sense. If you skim read it, you might end up being a little bit confused. But in order to make it precise, it has to be a little bit more verbose than perhaps would be ideal. Why is there rules for win, lose, draw and win, lose for tier 6?
Would that be where is the rules?
No. Why are, I think it should be, why are there rules for win,
Right.
lose, draw and win, lose for tier 6 and tier 7 on the website, as these have different game lengths? I don't quite understand that question, but there aren't rules on for tier 6 and tier 7. There are tier 6 and 7 rules, which are, both games are the same lengths. Obviously, win-lose and win-lose draw games are also the same length, but there are different rules. Tier 8 is a different length. It's a 40 over a side match rather than a 45 over a side match. If you want to have a rethink about it, it's from Steve. If you want to rethink about that question, see if you can make me understand it a bit better.
So just to clarify, in the win-lose games, we allow more minutes per over. In the win-lose-draw games, they're less minutes per over.
Okay.
And there are different restrictions on the bowlers.
Yes.
And a fielding circle in the win-lose games. There are some significant differences to those two types of game.
And they change how long. Yeah, and they change how long you can actually bowl your overs in. So we allow more time to play the win-lose game than we do to play the win-lose-draw game.
Okay, just checking. The DLS app is Android compatible only and not Apple iOS. That is correct.
Unless the guy who invented that one has, since we last checked, done an iOS app, and I will check sometime, then it is Android. But we believe that if you've got at least 24, 26 with scorers, people at a game, somebody must have an Android phone between
them. If a panel umpire is provided, then does the home or away team need to provide a club umpire? Okay, I'm going to hesitate to just say, can you go back and reread that, please? If a panel umpire is supplied, he is only supplied because a team has supplied an umpire to the panel and then got one back. So if you as a team have nominated an umpire to the panel, you are entitled in return to have a neutral panel umpire appointed to the game. He is your umpire. The umpires are attached to the teams. So it doesn't matter whether it's the home or away team. If you're the away team and a panel umpire has turned up from your club because you have nominated a club to an umpire to the panel, then the other side have to provide a club umpire or not get the bonus point. Okay, so umpires are linked to teams. You nominate one to the panel or you bring one with you. If a panel umpire turns up, he's not been nominated to a game randomly. He's been nominated to that game because one of those teams nominated an umpire to the panel in the first place. So you only get back what you give. Hopefully that makes sense. So can a definition of club umpire be an experienced non-playing club member but not necessarily level 1 qualified? Yes, at this level it can, but we would encourage, if that's someone that's going to do it, get themselves level 1 qualified.
Yeah, that's the question. Why don't they want to get level 1 qualified?
But you can do the first part online at least, can't you?
You can do it online. It's not a big commitment. It's free of charge.
Yeah.
Why not do it? It'll improve your cricket actually, because you'll know the laws better.
Does the DLS app work in locations without mobile signal and no Wi-Fi?
Yes, it is essentially just a calculator on your phone at that point, but obviously with the DLS calculations, not just simple sums.
Okay, that's an answer from Nielsen, which was ideally we would prefer to have 2 umpires at each match if possible. That is the goal. Can you load and print match sheets for the game, or is there card that can be given to the umpires like in the OCA? Well, as you said a bit earlier,
Yeah, Ian.
Sorry, go on.
So if you've still got cards left over from the OCA, you can use those.
Yeah, they're fine.
Because they're essentially the same cards as we're trying to obtain through the OCB.
In terms of downloading a match sheet, no, there isn't one, but it's not that complicated. You need 11 names and 11 ages on it. And that's as many as I've got at the moment.
One more.
Oh, is it? Oh, not really a question, but there is a lot of new technology for new joining clubs to get used to. New website, new scoring app, new wet weather app. What support is available for the clubs here?
Right, I'll answer that one. We appreciate there are different ways of putting results and things. There's a beta version of the website which has all the same stuff on it at the same URL, but obviously with a bit longer. And the first 2 weeks of the season have had their dates changed to be last weekend and the weekend before. If anybody wants to practice putting a result in or a scorecard, if they email me, I will email them back the link for it, and they can go, and it will work exactly the same as the website, but it won't update live matches and live results. But everything else will be identical. So you're welcome to practice results, umpires' forms, scorecards. I mean, the results fairly straightforward. The scorecard is, as you would expect, a scorecard, but you choose from your list of players. But you're welcome to practice. So no one wants to practice, if they email me, I will send a link out, and we'll perhaps put that link on the website anyway. But there is an opportunity for all of you, because there are enough home games for every team to submit a result and a scorecard. And the scorecard's responsibility of the home team as well as the result. And while we're talking about submissions, there's one extra thing this year which we've added, and either team can submit a match report if they want to, of I can't remember how many words, but they can write a reasonable report. They then appear on the archive page on the website against that match. However, they are all, I won't say censored, they are all vetted before they become available. And that's a voluntary exercise for members of the committee, so don't expect your report to appear immediately or email somebody because it hasn't appeared immediately. We'll get round to them. But if there's anything controversial or tricky in there, we simply won't publish it. We won't edit it. We won't censor bits of it. It just won't be published. And both sides are allowed to write their own match report. So again, you can practice putting those in if you want to, but that's just words. There's no technology involved in that one other than writing something about the match, which we can all share. And the one thing I will ask people when they're putting results in, the results is essentially a 2-step process. You put the scores in, and you press calculate result, and the result and the points will all appear at the bottom of the form. And only when you've read that, you think that's right, should you press submit result. So if you put the scores in, you will not believe how many times I get a phone call on a Saturday night saying, oh, we put the result in the wrong way round. Can we change it? And in fact, we even had one year, the last game of the season, bottom, there was whoever won stayed up, whoever went down, whoever lost went down. And the team that won put the result in as though they'd lost, and so relegated themselves temporarily. And I had a frantic phone call that night. So if you get it wrong, there's 2 opportunities. One, you can go and correct what you put in, or you can restart. So it's a 2-step process. The result will appear and say X beat Y by X runs, wickets, whatever it might be. And if you're happy with that, then press submit result, and the result will go in. The live results page will update within 2 minutes on your laptop and everybody else's. And the league tables will update with those with that information as well.
Okay, one more comment, #advert. Thank you very much, Tim Ham. If any clubs want an extra warm-up game this Saturday, Oxenford would be very interested if your club can host. Thank you. So contact Tim Ham.
I believe what might be the first team game is from I spoke to Owen earlier this afternoon. And they do have ground because their seconds are with us.
Okay, now somebody's come back and said, Tim, I may take you up on that. Can you take that conversation elsewhere, please? We'll be here all night. Is it possible to get a copy of the recording, please? Lots to take in tonight. Yes, I am recording and I will post it up on YouTube.
And actually,
send the link out to everyone.
For your benefit, I had an email from Texworth after we'd started saying, I can't get in because we've reached the 100 limit on meetings. Is it being recorded? Which I told him yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We wanted to make it clear that they weren't not attending, you just couldn't get in.
Yeah, well, turn up late, it's fine anyway. What if we get time, and there is a lot of stuff still to be done, but if we get time, we may try and do a sample result entry on a Zoom meeting, record it and put that up, so you'll be able to see someone going in through the beta website. But that kind of depends on Gary and I being able to find 10 minutes somewhere to set it up. But if we can do that, we will, and then you'll be able to go on that and you'll see, we'll try and pick out any potential issues that you might get. It is really simple. You know, once you've done it once, it's not a big problem. What I would advise is get at least 4 club members to know how to do it, because they'll all go, oh, I don't know how to do that, and you'll end up doing it every week. Okay, anything else? Any more adverts? Anyone want to sell a car?
There is a hand up, Ian.
Is there? Okay.
I can't see it.
I can't find it. Who's got the hand up? Oh, Harbinger of Doom. If you can't get on the chat, you can unmute yourself.
Yes.
Okay, crack on. What was the question?
I didn't have one. I think it must just popped up.
Oh.
Even better.
Okay.
I didn't have a question.
No worries. I will lower your hand for you. There you go.
Ian, can I cover off one thing?
Of course.
I don't, unless I missed it. I don't think it's been mentioned. Another of the after game tasks is to mark the umpires. If you could remember to do that, and please do it objectively. Don't give him 1 because he gave you LBW.
That's both captains as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, marking the umpires is really useful, because with the number of umpires that we've got coming in, more and more, hopefully, of the club umpires will want to go on the panel.
Yeah.
And we've got a lot of different tiers and a lot of different standards. So we need your opinion on how the umpires are performed so that we can promote them or
So that,
hold them
yeah,
at
that
the appropriate level.
that's for all club panel umpires.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all umpires can be marked.
And there's a tendency for people to only make a comment if you think the umpire was awful. If you think he was good, it'd be nice to know in what way you thought he was good as well.
Okay. We're getting to within 15 minutes of the next meeting. Happy to take any more questions if there are any. If you think of something the minute we end the meeting, feel free to put a question onto the secretary email account. If you don't know where that is, your club secretary will, because they get bombarded and stuff from you fairly regularly. But just pass a question through there and I'll put it back to you individually. If it's something that's coming up a lot, we'll put it out on a general mail. The other thing you might, as captains, want to check is all of the information that I send out to the club secretaries, I duplicate and put up on the Cherwell League website in a PDF format. Now, this involves quite often rule tweaks, bits and pieces. If you just go in and search for the minutes, it's on the same page as the League Management Committee minutes meetings, and it's usually entitled From the Secretary's Desk with a date. You're welcome to go in and read that, and it's all useful information, and particularly in the last couple of editions, it's information which is predominantly about playing, not about administration, because we're getting closer and closer to the season. So it's a useful resource for you to have if you're not getting everything through from your secretary, or you've forgotten where the mails went, or whatever. It doesn't do any harm if captains understand the rules. Okay. Okay, not a question, but just to say the new website looks great. Thanks to all those involved. Gary, take a bow.
Good. Nielsen's discovered a couple of bugs this morning, but we managed to fix those, so that's all good.
Good man.
It's a computer system. Why wouldn't there be bugs?
Absolutely, especially as I'd said that without any of your data in it.
And why
have
did
no-
Nielsen discover it?
I have noticed, Gary, that some of my appointments are in against the fixtures. But when I go into the page for me as an umpire, it doesn't show at the bottom the ones I've been appointed to, although there's a space that says it will.
And when you look, because we made a little change to that earlier, I should have looked now.
Actually, I don't remember putting Brian on the list of ones that I noticed were wrong.
No, you did, because I corrected all the others earlier.
Okay, guys, we've got 99 people watching a family conversation here now. So if no one else has anything, I'd just like to wish you all the very best for the season. We on the committee are absolutely excited about this. We hope it's going to be great. We hope you really enjoy it. And if there is something you don't understand, or if you get something slightly wrong the first week, we probably won't deduct you 20 points straight away. Just if there's anything you're worried about, give us a call or drop us an email and we'll do our best to help you. But with that, I'm going to say, yeah, we got some thanks coming in, which is nice. Thank you very much. I'm going to say, gentlemen, feel free to leave the meeting, and in 2 minutes I will end the meeting for all, so that I can restart one for the high polite from tiers 1 to 5. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks so much.
You guys,
Hope you enjoy the season all.
I haven't got them anywhere, Gary. I've just tried somebody else, and there aren't any appointments for them either.
Okay, gents, I'm going to end the meeting for all now. Committee members that are coming on, I will restart I'll start the meeting for tiers 1 to 5 in about 3 minutes, because I'll give this a chance to
See you then.
see you on the other side.